Radio, where gamers roll.
www.d20radio.com.
Hello, Gamer Nation, and welcome to the Dice Pool Podcast, covering everything that you've ever wanted to know about how to run and play in the Genesis role-playing game by Fantasy Flight Games. I'm your host, GM Hooly, and in this episode we are trying our best to deal with our post-Gamer Nation Con depression. And from what I hear, talking about it is the best way of getting through it. Now, it's always hard to have a dazzling high from doing nothing but playing games with your best friends for 4 days, to only be faced with the grueling reality of normal life post-con. But before we get into all the details of our Gamer Nation Con 6 experiences, let me introduce you to my fellow hosts, GM Huzz, GM Flano, and GM Kaitlin. How are we all?
Doing all right.
Doing all right?
Yeah. Good to actually be here.
Yes.
I missed the last episode. I'm so sad.
Oh, that's okay. We managed to catch up with you in the States, so it was all good.
It's true. It's true. It's like it was great to be able to see you guys again. I missed you.
It was like getting the band back together again. It was cool.
Absolutely.
Good. So in post-con, what has everybody been up to? Mike?
Post-con?
Other than being depressed.
Well, in a pit of despair.
Right.
No, but I was sick, so I came back with a cold. I either picked up from the airport,
Or the con.
or the plane, or many locations overseas that I went.
Right.
But so that made the post-con depression even worse. Having a cold, then having to go back to work, and really, it's amazing I'm still here. I was struggling, but no, it's good now. I've recovered from that. Work has been crazy, but I sort of softened the blow of going back to work by preparing for being away from work before I left. Because
Right.
Unfortunately, when you run your own business,
Yeah.
you don't get holidays, and you got to make sure all the responsibilities are taken care of before you leave. So you can't just give it to someone else to do. But no, it was good. So game wise, I haven't really done a whole lot.
No.
No, that's not true. I've played a lot of Batman.
Batman?
I'm back into the Batman miniatures game. We used to play it a few years ago, but that's actually how I came to be really good mates with a friend of the show, Josh Bruce, was from
Right.
the Batman miniatures game back in the first edition of the game.
Ah.
We sort of put that on hiatus for a while because we couldn't get anyone else to play, but then apparently 2-3 years later, whenever it was, we've gotten a whole swarm of people back into the second edition of the game.
It's had a bit of a resurgence, hasn't it?
Well, in our community anyway, but it's very, very popular because they've just sort of redone a lot of the miniature range now of new resin sculpts.
Yep.
And they're a lot better than the old metal sculpts. And old metal sculpts are always really good by night models, but you can't beat resin when it comes to assembly and etc. Even for them casting models, they could do a lot more creative things than they couldn't do with metal because metal sucks to build and do anything with because the model's too heavy, it collapses under its own weight, etc.
Yep.
But that's a story for another podcast. But yeah, that's basically what I'll be doing. Batman miniatures game. Have I role played?
I don't think you have role-played. I know we're role-playing tonight.
Yes. I don't think I've actually role played, despite the fact that I now have a stack of books that I picked up whilst overseas.
I spent far too much money in that place.
Yes. Well,
How do you survive, Kaitlin, in a place where all of just everything is available, like at your fingertips?
I
Amazon.
survive on food that I find on the side of the street. I fashioned a really nice tent out of a tarpaulin I found on the side of the road.
Right.
And I have an amazing burnt out car where I keep all my RPG stuff.
Oh.
So it's just, it's more like a van, but it keeps all the children away.
me and
Which you'd think would be the opposite of a van, but it works.
well, me and Martin can confirm all this because we were over there staying with Kaitlin and Chase a week prior to the con. So the van is spacious.
Right.
It's like the van.
I am a fan of the van. You can
Right.
call me a van fan.
Wow. Interesting. Martin. Well, just got to move away from the van thing.
I haven't actually done.
Not the first person.
You never move away from the van thing.
Don't
the van
don't
moves with
shame
you.
my interests here.
But no, I haven't actually been up to much. I did get to play some Vampire the Masquerade.
Oh my goodness! Did you?
On
The new edition?
Wednesday. No, the old
That's
one.
okay then.
It's
You may
a
continue.
long-running game that I've been in at the moment.
But you
which
won't-
is,
but you notice you won't run a game for us.
No, I know.
I'm not running it. I'm
But
playing.
you won't
it.
run a game for us.
I
though.
will run a game for you.
Oh.
Find the time.
No invite.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
saying.
don't worry, it hasn't happened. So
You'll get an invite when it happens.
I bought the dice and everything when I was over there.
Yeah, I know.
Weird. Kaitlin, what about you? What sort of gaming have you been up to since you live there? You didn't have to travel very far.
This is true. But I didn't live in Texas, so there was still a little bit of traveling.
that's
I do
true.
live in San Diego, which I did pick up the same cold that Michael did, thanks to the travel.
But much worse, I think.
But you had a better time. You had an amazing time. Well, I mean, apart from the sickness, obviously. But you had an amazing time post-con, didn't you?
I did. I still suffered the post-con depression. I will admit it was incredibly difficult to say goodbye to you guys. I mean, I know it's just a goodbye for now, and I can talk to you now and things like that. But I still had that post-con depression. Plus, playing 4 days of nothing but doing role-playing games is like my dream, right? Like that is where I want my life to be. So not being able to do that after having so much of it, I can definitely post-con depression. But I was certainly picked right back up again because I managed to fly to Chicago and actually go to Star Wars Celebration Con.
Wow.
And it was amazing. I managed to win the lottery to do the episode 9 panel, which was really, really cool. I don't know. It's not spoilers because if you haven't seen it, then what the hell?
planet are you on?
But it was amazing to see Palps come out and do his voice to say "roll it again." Like I just amazing. I wanted to say something that was wildly inappropriate, and we don't have an After Dark episode just yet. It was awesome. It was, yeah, I really loved it. I managed to, in terms of like gaming, I didn't get to do so much gaming, but I managed to play Vader Immortal for the that's coming out for the VR. That's coming out. That looks actually really cool. There was a bit of a release for it. And yeah, it is super fun. Like Vader comes right up to you and you're in VR, and I kept on trying to push his buttons on his chest piece. And I'm like, it actually would be kind of cool if in the game that if you did try to like push his buttons, like you just instantly died and had to restart the level because he just kills you. But you know, I can only ask for so much immersion.
Because Vader doesn't like his buttons being pushed.
That's right. He really doesn't. But it was really cool. I got to see all the cosplays that was there and just experience everything. And I managed to hang out with Keith Capel, who's a friend of the podcast as well, and see his life and hang out at the FFG thing, play some games. Managed to pick up Allies and Adversaries and Rise of the Separatists as well. Like just all really... Just really exciting things. Plus, at the FFG booth in Chase and I, who's Chase, my husband, we managed to get a photograph of us to be put on our own custom Destiny cards. So I'm going to be put on, a Dark Side Destiny card. And,
Nice.
I'm super excited for that. We got to paint our own minis there as well. I managed to see Alan Tudyk. He was there.
Cool.
Yeah, it's just lots of really cool things. It was an amazing experience and some of the most amazing artwork I've ever seen for Star Wars. And yeah, I'm very privileged to have been able to go, and it was just wonderful. Plus, we went to the 501st party as well, which was phenomenal. Like they had, it was so cool playing at a huge nightclub that's set in a science center that you could just go to and listen to Star Wars music being played and just walk around and see all the science exhibits. It was probably one of the best times I've had, apart from being able to play 4 days of RPGs, which is the highlight of my life so far. Which is, yeah.
Sorry, you paid for it with that horrible virus cold thing you had. So
I did.
It makes me feel better.
Bedridden. I managed to push through for a lot of it, but it did knock me out well and truly. I'm only just starting to recover.
Just real quick.
Yes.
We glossed over Martin's gaming, just saying.
Oh.
I started bullying about not running a vampire game.
Oh,
and moved on.
right. So was that the only thing that you've done?
Yeah, pretty much.
Well,
See, I
carry
there wasn't
on.
a story
There
there.
we go.
Sorry, Kaitlin, go on.
If you like, we could finish off the rest of this podcast and I can tell you in more detail about Star Wars Celebration Con.
Well, supposedly it's happening again. Normally it's every 2 years. But it's going to be, it's always been 2 years.
Not always.
Originally it was 3 years.
It did have a little bit of a break in between. I got the manual for it, not the manual. What do they hand out? That's
How to
ridiculously
assemble.
The program.
The program. That's what I got. Yeah, it originally started in like the 90s, and they had a little bit of a hiatus, and then it started to kick back up to be every second year.
Yeah. So originally they were every 3 years because they were coming out just before the movie got released with the prequels. Because the guys from Gen Con actually ran the Celebration 3. And then it got taken over by Reed Pop, and then Reed Pop has been running it ever since, and they've been doing it every 2 years. But having said that, it was run over at there was like Celebration Europe, and there was Celebration Japan, I think, as well. We should have Celebration Australia. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, the whole 4 people that'll be there. So
Yeah, us.
yeah, exactly. But
That's all that matters.
But in saying that, next year is in Anaheim,
Yes.
which is West Coast. So it's
Yeah,
very,
that's
very
true.
cool for us.
So
to
we can go to Gamer Nation Con first, and then we'll come back to Celebration. We might have to do, Galaxy's Edge. How cool does that look?
get ready to wait in line for the rest of your life.
Look, I've been to Disneyland
Worth
before.
it.
That's all I'm going to go
apparently, it's like beyond their expectations for
Really?
lines.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Because you can build your own lightsaber, you can build your own droid that if
Fly
you
the
actually
Falcon.
can put a personality chip in the droid that you make, and depending on where you go in the park, it'll make beeps and boops on how it feels about being in that area. So if you have a resistance droid and you walk into a first order area, it'll start being scared and nervous, like woo, like beeps kind of thing. So there's the line's
how I
going to be
display my
crazy,
fear.
but I'm so excited. I want my own droid. I want my own lightsaber. I want to play in the Millennium Falcon. I want people to talk to me when I'm at their hotel that I'm actually I'm in the Star Wars universe. I want it all.
How cool is it to be a Star Wars fan and being alive right now?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, from a certain point of view, because there's a lot of cranky people out there. But
Well, we can just ignore the
That's the internet.
toxicity. But if you just as a side note, very quickly, did everybody see any of the live streaming that was going on for the Star Wars show?
No.
Because I tell you what, the love that they gave Kelly Marie Tran and
I was there.
Ahmed Best was just amazing. So I'm glad that the world is not full of internet trolls.
well, all this grimdark,
Except for the
and-
internet.
Well, that's true.
Well, that's
all this grimdark discussion about internet trolls, etc. There's one light at the end of the tunnel,
What's that?
and if you're one of these current Star Wars fans who don't like Star Wars because for some reason,
Yes.
some clickbait article you recently clicked,
Yeah.
I think we all agree upon the fact that Mandalorian looks totally dope. And if you don't like
gosh.
that, then I'm sorry, you're not a person.
I would
Yeah.
agree. It looks
I'm
so
so
good.
excited for that.
Maybe
Like,
you're being pragmatic.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
You know because everyone's seen the clip, the actual
the dodgy clip because Lucasfilm haven't released the
for
actual
reasons.
Yes.
But the guy he's talking to in the office is actually a really famous cult movie director.
Because everybody sort of went crazy, and I'm going, "Who is this person?"
Well, I can't remember. He's got a really. His name's very European, and I can't remember it. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I know who he is.
Yep.
One of the things he's most known for is one of the films he was filming. They had to they had to get the crew to drag this boat over a mountain. The cast of extras.
Right.
He hired locals to drag this. I think it was equivalent to a steamboat. I'm pretty sure over a mountain.
Right.
And when it got to the top, it tumbled and smushed a heap of people.
Oh,
on the
no.
other side down.
Jesus.
So it's quite infamous for that.
Wow.
Wow. You're simply being pragmatic. So,
Okay.
But did we get the shot?
well, maybe.
That's all that matters.
Weird.
Okay, obviously not, but just saying.
Trivia, fun facts. There you go.
Fun facts, right? Way to kill people. Interesting.
Well, it's not how you kill Bob. It's one way, I suppose.
That's one way.
It's one of many.
Right.
One of many.
Puts a new definition
You
on
can think of
steamboat.
worse
Really.
ways to go, to be honest.
This is true. So other than that, Kaitlin, well, I think that's pretty much it for you, isn't it? That's all you've
You're
had time
done.
for. You're
Yeah,
done.
but what about you, Ian? What have you been up to?
Well-
Try following that one.
I've got nothing.
You had a celebration, didn't you?
So no, I did not do
Oh, that's a
celebration,
shame.
but I was lucky enough to spend a couple of days before having to do my 36-hour flight back, and it was 36 hours because of I've decided to be really cheap this year, and there were layovers galore on the way back. But I got to spend some time with GM Chris and a few of our Texas friends while before having to come back. But since being back, I've been busy at work on Knight's Edge, and doing the set-in document for that. So, just keep your eye on the internet for those that later on down the track. But we will go on to that at a later stage, I'm sure.
We have mixed up a little bit though. We've taken werewolves out and vampires out, and there's no airships. And
All gone.
Yeah, everyone just rides on griffins.
Yes,
On the
Griffins.
It's actually called Knight's Griffin, bro. Oh, I attacked him with my sword, eh? Oh no, he's got a shield.
Jeez.
His griffin's more powerful than mine, eh? Quickly, swoop your griffins onto the deck of their ship.
I thought there wasn't any more shit.
Yeah.
Wow. Anyway, so, look for that new
Oh no,
expanded
what
setting.
happened to all the werewolves, bro? They're gone, eh? Edit it out.
Oh, dear. Anyway.
For the best, because I always thought they were a bit spooky, eh?
Oh, jeez.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, dear. Anyway, moving along after I've just about
Oh
to
no,
die.
you're sick, bro.
Oh, yeah, I am a little bit. So I've, jeez, I don't know.
Piss off, ghost.
Oh, dear. Right. Moving along.
Yep.
So, yes. So basically what have I been up to? Well, not a lot other than my flight. But other than that, I managed to get some Star Trek on the table yesterday, which was a little bit of fun.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
We've got to mention the flight dramas that me and Martin had.
flight drama.
Oh my god.
Martin, how long did it actually take you to get back home?
I didn't work it out.
Right.
Those numbers don't go that high.
But it was meant to take what, like a
13-hour flight
13-hour flight,
from LAX
but there was also the like 3 or 4 hours before that.
of getting to place.
Yep. But add a day or two to that, and that's about how long it took.
Wow.
Because what happened was our flight got cancelled.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a bit of a lead up to that because we're sitting at the terminal at LAX and the plane was sitting there for about 3 hours before it got cancelled.
Yeah, so it got delayed first.
It got delayed.
Was this Qantas?
Qantas.
Yeah, no, but it's good.
They did the right thing.
I'm glad that they did it.
But I remember because where we were sitting at the airport, we could see the plane. I'm like,
It was,
oh,
like,
cool,
right
plane.
in front of us.
We'll start boarding in a couple of hours. Yay. Then I saw dudes with flashlights shining their flashlights in the plane at a more increasing rate of frequency.
And then they got
And that's
lifted
never a
up.
good thing.
They got
Then
lifted up.
Ladders came out. I'm like, uh-oh, here we go. And then there's a big scratch in the front nose of the plane.
Right.
And sure enough, the bird strike.
Oh.
And
Did they get back to work? Were they picketing? That's a bird
Yeah.
strike.
I actually was thinking when he
bad
very
seed.
first told me that. The first thing I thought was the people that shoo the birds off the tarmac had strikes, and so they're all these birds on the tarmac, and they couldn't take off because there's too many birds on the tarmac. That was literally like when he said that, I was like, that must be what's happening. The people who shoo the birds off, because like no joke, this is going to be a little revealing of myself, but when I was in high school, I actually did a test about what kind of job you should do.
Right.
And it was
Road striker?
basically, it asked you questions about how you like to deal
Yeah.
with people, like what the kind of person you are, all that kind of stuff. And I did the test, and the test told me that my preferred job would be that person who shoos pigeons
What?
off airplane tarmacs. That was what I got.
So you'd be the one that's sort of like running down the tarmac going, caca, caca.
Yeah,
That's like,
absolutely.
wow.
That is what it suggested. That should be my career goal. So I know that job exists, and I legit, when you told me that, I was like, okay, they've all gone on strike. And then I had to have a little bit of a second guess going, actually, no, that's not how the world works.
I would just train like a whole bunch of cats.
Then you have cat strikes.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a cat stuck up in the wheel carriage of a Boeing?
No!
It's not pretty.
Wow.
And you don't want that.
No.
No.
Talking about getting dark. Anyway.
I feel I'm pretty bad about that.
Oh.
Wow. Okay.
Right.
Right.
Anyway.
So
enough with the puns.
Yes, sorry, bird strike.
Our flight
Yes.
ultimately got cancelled. Qantas did the right thing.
It was about 5 hours later, wasn't it?
Yeah. We were supposed to take off at 10:30, and
It was like 3 a.m. or something.
by the time we got to the hotel and fell asleep, it
yeah.
was 3 a.m. But they put us up in the Sheridan. Sheridan?
Yeah, Sheridan,
Hotel?
I think, yeah.
Really, which is like a stone's throw from the airport.
Nice, yeah.
And yeah, our flight was pretty much cancelled until 24 hours later.
Wow.
I was lucky enough to get into a flight going to Brisbane.
Yep.
Paul Martin, on the other hand, had to get one that was being diverted from Melbourne
to Melbourne.
Yeah.
And then another flight from Melbourne to Brisbane. Now, Mike just went home at that point.
I had a nice cheeky 8-hour sleep on the plane.
Yeah.
Woke up feeling refreshed, typed some things on my laptop, watched a film, then I was off the plane.
Whereas I get to the airport and my plane's delayed.
Uh-oh. But strike again.
This doesn't bode well for a start.
It was delayed for like 2 hours, I think. It was like 2 hours. So I just wait and I get on the plane. And so that's fine. I get to Melbourne. But because the plane has been delayed, they've had to cancel my other flight, my connecting flight, and reschedule that. So because otherwise I would have arrived after my plane was supposed to leave.
Right.
But it was essentially that plane that I was on had been delayed twice during that period. So they'd had to reschedule this second plane twice. But the second they didn't end up rescheduling the second time because there was just enough of a gap between for me to go directly from the plane to the plane.
Wow.
Right? So it was like 3 hours I had to get from one plane to the other. Or it might have even been less. But they chose to, you know how sometimes they do random bag searches.
Oh, no.
So my bag was the one that got the random bag search, and they broke my lock.
Fair,
So my
doing the same thing. Untrustworthy.
my bag is the last one off the plane because I have to. It's not it is a connecting flight, but I have to go through customs. So I have to get the bag, go through customs, and I'm already delayed by an hour waiting for this bag to come off. And then I go through customs, and then I get to the other side where I've got to check my bag in, and it's all automated. Everything's automated. There's no like person that I can talk
Is it
to.
robots to do this? Check your bag?
Yep. No, pretty much. Yeah, you go up to a panel, you can print out. You know how you do the automated
for your
stuff.
passport, for your passport.
Yeah, and then you go up to the thing, and there's no person there. You weigh your own bag, and it like takes it away on a thing.
There's
no one there.
New Zealand does that now.
It's 100% automated. But of course, because my plane's been rescheduled twice, my boarding pass doesn't match the plane, so the machine won't take my bag. Now it's like 15 minutes at this point till I have to be boarding.
Boarding, yeah.
And I can't get my bag through. And then I look because they've got like 3 people working to help everyone, and they're all busy.
Oh, God.
I had to wait 10 minutes to get someone to help me. And by this point, they won't accept my bag. Like the machine won't accept my bag because the plane's already loaded.
Oh, no.
So they take me over to the international desk where there's actually people, and they take my bags and say, just run. We'll take care of the bags. You run.
Wow.
And so I ran to the plane. I get on. I make it to the plane like on exactly the time where I'm supposed to walk in.
Yeah.
If I'd waited any longer, I wouldn't have made it. That plane makes it. I get to the other end, and I'm waiting for my bags to come off the rotunda. And then I hear over the speaker,
Mr. Martin, could you please
come over to the counter. One of my bags had made it onto my plane. The other one was still due to come.
Wow.
So, yeah, I eventually get that mailed to me by the airport. But every step of the way, there was something wrong.
Wow. That sounds like my second year that I went to Game Nation Con, that I missed a flight. And, what a nightmare. But anyway, you know what we should probably do? And
Talk.
that's terrible, by the way, that this has happened. I don't want to belittle that
No,
situation.
not at all.
But I tell you what, we should probably get on to a bit of a thing called the podcast.
Yeah.
Talk about
Oh.
some stuff. Yeah,
Is that
I
what
know.
we need to do
right?
today?
I
I
know,
thought we were just
allegedly. Allegedly. However, before we get to that, Kaitlin, would you like to take us through our podcast spotlight for this episode?
Sure can. This episode, we spotlight one of the newest podcasts on the network, Guardians of the Whills, a podcast dedicated to the novels and comics of Star Wars Legends material. In their latest episode, the crew of the Staggering Dragon discussed the conclusion to the original Thrawn trilogy, The Last Command. So join Neil and Dustin as they break down this classic tale. You can listen to this podcast and many more on the D20 Radio Network by visiting www.d20radio.com.
Cool. Now, just to give you an indication as to how new this particular podcast is, which is done by Dustin. And Dustin, thank you very much for the G.I. Joe setting material that you gave to me during Gamer Nation Con. Very, very cool. I managed to get a bit of a read through that when I wasn't sleeping on the plane. I listened to all 3 episodes of that were out at that point. Sorry, all 2 episodes. The third one's only just been released this week. Got to listen to 2 episodes and, absolutely loved it. A few little discrepancies there. But that's a side note. The boys basically do a great job. Have a lot of fun discussing the novels. Give it a listen. Can't wait to hear you get onto some of the New Order books and to find out whether you actually trash them. But that's a side note anyway. So now it's time to get right to the core of all of our depressions. What do you think?
I don't like the sound of it.
I think we should just keep it with the core of the show.
Okay, fair enough. Core of the show. And welcome to Core of the Show, the segment where we take a deep dive into a topic concerning the Genesis role-playing game, and of course gaming in general, except this time we're not going to be doing any of that.
Nah.
In this episode, we really want to talk about gaming in general. This gaming family that we've found ourselves part of, and also about how to best set yourself up for a gaming convention like Gamer Nation Con. Now, we hope this episode could be an introduction, perhaps, to anybody who hasn't attended a gaming convention and has been thinking about it, or perhaps as a bit of a guide to someone who has attended and is interested in jumping behind the screen at the next con. Plus, there is also a little bit of fun. We'll have a little bit of fun reminiscing of the amazing time that we've had with everybody who attended and who wish that they did attend. So let's get into it by outlining what it is we're actually talking about for everybody who lives under a rock. Kaitlin.
Sure. So as you all know, the Dice World podcast crew was actually able to reunite in person to attend the D20 Radio's Gamer Nation Con 6 in Plano, Texas, America. It is basically what it is a 4 days of gaming goodness in 2 huge rooms that basically contains all of our friends. And it's not just Genesis or Star Wars RPGs, it's all different kinds of RPGs, board games, pretty much anything. It's just a whole bunch of people getting together that are able to come and play different RPGs in different settings, in different worlds, in different systems. It's really fantastic. If you are interested in finding out more about the Gamer Nation Con, you can check them out at www.gamernationcon.com. But you can also find them on Facebook by searching Gamer Nation Con. And as well, you can also check out our Facebook because we will share anything to do with that because we want as many people to attend next year. It was absolutely fantastic.
Absolutely. So now we know if you've never attended before, now you know exactly what we're talking about. So what did each one of us do at the con? Huzz, what did you get up to at the con?
Well, this is my first RPG convention, which was surprised a few people.
Yeah, that surprises me.
Well, when you live in Australia and sort of live in the boonies like I do.
Well, Brisbane's in the boonies if you look at role-playing conventions.
I live further north of the boonies.
Well, that's fair enough.
I live in a little raft floating out in the middle of nowhere.
The back end of the boonies.
Well, the thing is, if I want to once upon a time, to find a role-playing group, it was super, super, super hard to do. Like, I would drive, I'm sure the rest of us, if the rest of you can relate, especially Kaitlin, I used to drive, 2-3 hours, to go find and play a game. That's what we had to
Still do.
Well, that's it.
Martin still does, yes.
Yeah, well, suck up.
Sorry, man.
But yeah, my first RPG convention. Now I've attended a lot of other gaming conventions in my time, mostly tabletop miniature gaming stuff, like tournaments, etc. But it was great to be in there and actually see some RPGs being played with a very vast array of people. Because when you live in a little bubble of a gaming circle of your own, you often forget there is many other people out there who also enjoy their hobby and the passion of it. But as for what I did, I didn't schedule any games, mainly because I didn't know really what I was in for. So I just went off.
Same.
I thought I'd just wing it. Just go in there and see what happens. And I think next time I'll definitely schedule some games because, you're sort of relying on there being open spaces in other games to play a game. Yep. But in saying that, I actually managed to play a fair few games. But I think the first day I didn't play any games that I recall. But I ran a Android game sort of on the edge of my seat. I didn't prep for it whatsoever. I decided just to do it because there was people looking for games, and I was like, "YOLO, let's do it." And people seem to have fun with that. What else did I get up to? I think the second or third day, I can't remember. It all blurs together. I played in a weird World War II setting with superheroes. Name of the game I can't recall. It was Genesis. That was a lot of fun. Very, very pulpy in terms of its action. We beat up robots, for the good of the Allies and defeated the Axis sort of thing. Very cheesy Flash Gordon sort of style of stuff, which was fun. Breaks up the pacing of more serious role playing quite a bit. Then I played GM Phil's sci-fi setting, which name escapes me. I'm sure you know what it is, Ian.
I have absolutely no idea what it is.
Totally love your setting, Chris, Phil, but I can't remember the name. So
sorry, Phil.
It was something expressive. I know that, but that was a lot of fun. Then I played in the Familiar game with Chris. That was a blast.
Chris Witt.
Chris Witt. Yep. I'm just awfully upset that we didn't get our plan of dressing up 6 familiars in a trench coat to sneak aboard a ship.
Yep.
I really wanted to do that, but
we just were missing the trench coat.
If you ask me, I don't think people tried hard enough to find the trench coat. I could see the fear in Chris's eyes when we suggested that, and he's like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "I'm deadly serious." And sure enough, I managed to conjure an army of pigeons. So something weird happened regardless. I'm happy about that.
Just want to say, if you were trying to get onto a ship dressed like that, it's just another sort of boarding action, really, isn't it? Let's face it.
Yeah, 100% correct.
Just saying.
But I did a lot of stuff. It was a lot of fun. But I won't hog the mic for too long. I'm sure it'll come back around to me. Let me think about it.
Martin, what did you get up to? I know one thing you did do, and I'm glad I organised that. That was so cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
Oh, running the L5R game, Legend of the Five Rings. Managed to run, it was the Gen Con module.
Yep.
The wedding at Kyoto Castle, yeah. Yep. Really good module. I only read it the night before.
I was in the hotel room and I could see the terror gripping Martin as he crammed the module the night before and the morning before as well. I might break immersion here.
Yeah, well, I actually destroyed my laptop.
No.
That's how nervous he was. That's how fearful he was. He got a hammer
I
out
banged
and
it into the corner of the table while I was leaving the hotel.
Yep.
And didn't realize until I sat down and opened it up to start running the session.
It started to rattle.
That it just wasn't working.
Whoops.
It's a bit of a meme.
But thankfully, Chase came to my rescue and I used his laptop and reran the game, and it was so good.
But who did you run the game for, Martin?
The drummer for Fall Out Boy, Andy Hurley, was there.
Very good. So you are the only one of us who has now GM'd a game for a rock star.
Yes.
That's a pretty big claim.
Well,
There you go.
the best part about this for me is that after the game, everyone went and bought a book for Legend of the Five Rings.
I know.
And that is, that's one of my fondest memories.
Look, I'll add to that and say that Chris Hunt, who's
Yep.
another friend of the podcast, who is a freelancer for FFG, he was previously a little bit reluctant to write for L5R, but since playing the game, because he didn't know much about it, but since playing the game, he has said this is right up his alley. And I know for a fact that he has had a conversation with Sam to say, I would so write for L5R now. So positive, kudos to you. It was really good.
It is one of my favorite settings of all time. And being able to share that with people and being able to be a part of, its evolution now that it's with FFG is amazing.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a dream.
Very good, yeah. No, it was good. Everybody that I spoke to that played in your game said it was amazing and you're a great GM. So, there you go.
I don't believe him.
I was stoked to get Keith Capel in my Android game. That was good.
That
Keith
was so good.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I threw all the NPCs that he created at him. So that was
Bit of revenge.
Yeah, and I also managed to fit in some degloving of someone's arm in the first five seconds of the roleplay.
To be
He was
clear,
disturbed by that.
To be clear, the guy wasn't wearing a glove.
No, he wasn't.
He's burnt flesh in his arm. Because how do you handle a nightclub brawl? You just pour raw petrol on them and really ignite them. That's how you stop a fight.
Right.
To be fair, he was tased while he was covered in alcohol.
Well, that's true.
Yep.
Who knows whether alcohol actually does work like that, but still.
And how did he die?
I don't know.
I don't know how he died. Chase's character dropped after interrogating him and taking out the subdermal pad that was in his arm.
Yeah.
Right.
Chase's character dropped a dumbbell weight on his
Oh,
throat.
God. This is your husband, Kaitlin.
I was impressed.
Yeah, I'm so proud.
But yeah, it was good to run a nice, dark, gritty sort of game, which I like to do, and I think I managed to do that in the first few minutes of that.
Just a few minutes of that, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. What about you, Kaitlin? What did you play?
It is actually starting to become like a bit of a blur with all the games that I play, which is amazing. I had such an amazing time. Actually, the game that you're thinking of is Starcana. It's a setting that GM Phil. Yeah.
Starcana.
So I managed to get a game with that as well, and it was awesome. So much fun. It was like my perfect combination of sci-fi and horror, and I love my horror setting, so playing in that was just phenomenal. Plus GM Phil is amazing. I had so much fun playing in his game. I also played in his Fallout game, which I thought was so much fun. It was really different to trying to play in Genesis, but also playing Fallout. Like I've always played it in video games. I never actually thought it would be something I would actually play in an RPG type of setting, which just made me feel all warm and fuzzy inside, because that made me think I could do it with any of the RPGs that I just love video game wise playing in. So that was really cool. One of the highlights as well was playing in GM Chris Witt's familiar setting. I probably would say it's probably one of the most fun that I've had playing in an RPG in a long time. Purely because of the system that he's created with that familiar. I mean, it is Genesis, but then just making it strict bare bones, you have to look at doing things completely different when you're a snake. Like, you can't open up doors the same way. You have to think about how you're going to do that. Like, it was really cool, and the problem solving that you do. And I know, like, we all had a chance to actually play in that setting. And it was really cool. It actually inspired me to follow through on a setting that I've wanted to do of a horror setting where it's based around children going through a haunted house and going through a horror house essentially, but using the familiar setting, but instead of using it as animals, is that using it as small children trying to make their way through this house of horrors. So that kind of inspired me to actually, get my ass into gear and actually start creating some of these modules that I've had in my head that I've always wanted to do and just never done. I also had a chance to play in the Android setting, which was amazing. I had so much fun with that GM Huzz. But also what was really cool is managed to do a drunken session of, I am going to probably horribly pronounce this, but Coriolis?
Yeah.
Coriolis?
Coriolis, that's it.
That's it.
Coriolis?
That's about,
okay, cool.
that's about all that I can remember.
And that was by GM Jonas, which was really cool. I think we even saw him on a note he said, if you're, wanting to play in this game, come find the Mohawked Norwegian, which I just thought was the greatest note ever. I think it was that.
That's certainly ruled out.
Don't offend me. I'm sorry. I hope I got that right. But it was amazing. I had so much fun.
That was immediately after sitting down with some of the Canadians and playing
drunk.
Blood and Iron.
Yeah.
And Looping Louie. No,
Lupin Chewie.
Loop and Chewie. Yeah,
So
that was
good.
my favorite.
Yeah.
Except I didn't know how to play the game, so I was just bashing it.
To be fair.
I realized I was just hoping it not to hit me, but no, apparently you have to kind of do it a little bit gingerly so that the little dice don't roll. I did not know how to play this, so I'm just beating the crap out of it. Not knowing how to play.
GM Kaitlin was surprisingly dexterous at Looping Louie.
Oh, was she?
Very much so. Towards the end of it.
Right.
Yeah, I was a barbarian in that one.
The other thing I forgot to mention is that after the convention, we got Chris. It was Chris Hunt, wasn't
Hunt,
it?
yeah.
Ran a.
Yes.
It was the only Supers game.
That wasn't after the convention. That was the fourth
No,
day.
that was during the convention.
That was during-
Chris Hunt.
100%.
That was next on my list.
Oh, okay, go on. Sorry, you say it.
Yeah. Oh, well. The last. Well, I was going to say we only listed a couple, but like these games were like a couple hours in there, so you spend a lot of time gaming. But yeah, the last game, like on like the 9th hour, like the con was going to be finishing at 1:00, and we started gaming at 9. Like we were getting one last game in, and that was Chris Hunt's, and he did his Sith Academy, which was using Star Wars role-playing game, which we all know and love, very dear to our hearts, and it was so awesome because we were playing Darksiders, which I love to do, and we were doing basically raw recruits, going to this Sidai, combining the Sith and the Jedi. I'm that excited. Joining the Sith Academy,
Yes.
and it was so much fun. It was just like a bit of a ragtag group that we kind of put together the night before, and Chris had all the characters for us, and it was so much fun. I can
good.
really
It was good.
appreciate that, Chris, for actually putting that together for us, particularly because I kind of like drunkenly begged him to do it the night before because I just love Sith so much. Plus, he also did give me the most coolest Darth name that I could ever possibly imagine that needs to actually become a nickname, because I was getting very upset I didn't have a nickname other than GM Kaitlin, which was Darthfire. So
Oh.
if anyone wants to talk to me now, it's Darthfire from now on. But I would also want to do a very special mention. Probably some of the highlights of this, other than role-playing games, is actually playing games with Jaina, who is Chris Witt's and Chris's daughter. She was an absolute treat. I am thinking back fondly. My favorite pin that I got from that whole event was actually playing a game that she selected, which I had no idea. I was just excited to be able to play games with her. So that was a real treat to meet her, and she's an amazing kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played a couple of games with her as well. She's pretty cool.
She is very cool. Very, very cool.
What I was getting confused about, what happened after the convention, was playing in the hotel with Will, Wild Talents.
Chris was in that game too.
He was in the game. That's why I got confused. Playing Wild Talents. It was the only Supers game that I played in. And I got to play basically the T1000.
T1000.
Oh, really? That's so cool.
This is the game after the very tearful goodbye. Like,
Yes.
It was.
you guys had no invite.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Because the thing that we haven't actually mentioned when it comes to the con itself is that it had a theme.
Yeah.
Now, the general theme of the convention, and they've all had different themes as they've progressed through, was this year's theme was superheroes. So that's what, when Martin talks about it was the only Supers game that he got to play, that's the reason why there were Supers games there. So yeah, very good. Was there anything else that you got to play, Kaitlin?
I did. I got to play a couple of board games.
Yes.
I also didn't schedule anything like GM Huzz does. I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to walk into. So I kind of just wanted to kind of like fly by the seat of my pants. So I would walk down the hallway and someone says, "Do you want to join this game?" So I joined that game. Like, it was very free flowing and very organic about, where I went or how things happened. I just kind of hung around and people adopted me at each table, which as well, I just want to say, is what is amazing about the community and the people that we went to, is that you didn't actually have to know anyone. People just welcomed you with open arms and invited you to games, which I just thought was one of the coolest experiences I have had, particularly when meeting new people is not always the easiest thing. But yeah, I played a whole bunch of board games. I played an amazing board game with you, Ian, which was the Burgle Bros, and it was so much fun. I actually already have it on Amazon. It is coming to my house, and I cannot wait to make everyone around me play it. So yeah, it was just a quick little pickup game with Joshua. We managed to also rope in Sam Stewart, which was super fun.
Yay.
And I had a French contortionist who actually had to describe everything in a horribly French accent, which I'm pretty sure everyone was just very excited to have the game over, so they stopped hearing me do that voice.
Yeah. Can we have an example of
Example, please.
No. It's like, sacre bleu, to catch me. I'm going to slip past really quickly and quietly. Now that sounds like I was actually just trying to do a poem, horribly so in French, but everything was a sacre bleu.
Sacre bleu.
Love it. Very, very cool.
But yeah, it was super fun. We played lots of board games and played lots of different things. We also played, I can't remember the name of it, but it was like an alien mind reading game, which made me feel like I need to go back to school. But it was also really interesting. I can't for the life of me describe it because I still don't know exactly 100% what was happening most of the time. But in my defense, it was also 1 a.m.
Right.
But everyone else seemed to be up to speed, but just not me. I only caught on in like the last round.
Because that's something else as well with the convention is that it starts, on the Thursday, it starts at 12 to give everybody a chance to, get in from flights and whatever else. It goes through to 2 a.m. And then the following day, it starts at 9, goes through to 2 a.m. Next day, same thing. And it's only until Sunday where it closes on in the afternoon. So there's a lot of hours to fit in.
If you schedule in like a game for every one of those hours, you're playing a lot of games.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. And there are people that do exactly that. Is that they do nothing but, wall-to-wall gaming for the whole 4 days. Keith has tried that and lost his voice several times now. So, yeah.
Absolutely. What about you, Ian? What did you get up to?
God, what didn't I get up to? So I went a little bit early, obviously, as one of the marshals. So I got to help out Chris and Krista and the Gamer Nation Con team to help set up, greet people, hand out badges at the start of the convention and whatever else. Managed to play in Huzz's Android game, which was just amazing with Keith and the rest of the team. And a few other people, which I can't remember. Who else did we play that game with?
It was Chase, Kaitlin,
yep,
Martin,
yep,
Keith,
yep,
and
who was the last person?
I know his name, but I don't know his name.
I
spoke to him a lot at the con.
Canadian?
Nope, he wasn't a Canadian.
There was a lot of Canadians there. It's easy. Donald William, yes,
yeah, Donald William.
Yep,
because he was the only one that only faced the table I didn't know. Yeah, that's how I remember him because I didn't know him.
Yep.
But funnily enough, you and Martin actually played that game before.
Yes, we had, and it was completely different,
which is good
because that was that. Yes. That was kind of the starting adventure that we'd played for our Android campaign that you're running for us tonight.
Guess I just rewrote the start to make it a little bit more generic, and it played out very differently, which was good.
Absolutely, and it fits into that nice episodic sort of convention module type.
Yeah, I might even write it down as a convention module thing at some point. Definitely, when I have time and stuff.
Who has time and
motivation?
That's right. So what else did I play? I managed to. This is going to be all over the place because much like you guys, the weekends are blur. So I had to help out a lot during the convention, just at the desk. Just, handing out XP because they have, for every hour that you play, you get 10 XP. And then that XP is then used to buy swag, which is done through an auction process at the end of the con, which is pretty cool. And then you can get exclusives like books which have been signed by the authors. Like I believe that Martin, you got a few books that you managed to get signed by Keith and whatever else as well,
and
Sam.
A whole bunch of people.
Yeah, so
Sterling too.
And Sterling as well.
Sterling
Hershey.
But there's a few other names in there that had signed the book previous to the convention that weren't actually at the convention as well.
Very cool. So, yeah, so that's all that sort of stuff. So as far as games that I managed to get to play, Burgle Brothers, which was absolutely amazing, and I've still got to get that game. I ran a unique adventure for Knight's Edge.
Yes.
Which was, we might do that. Might send that out at a later stage. Who knows? Write it up properly.
Yeah.
That was...
It was special.
Giving too much away. Can I say that the first group both groups were absolutely amazing. But the original story is that you were on the Calamity because everybody got to play the characters from the podcast, from the live play, as well as two additional people. One was Lionel, the medic werewolf, and the other one was Grigor, who was the guy who absolutely hated Bonnie.
Mm-hmm.
Now
he's
I don't know
right?
why.
No,
She's a lovely lady.
Well, if you look at his backstory, and I would suggest going to thedicepodcast.com and you'll be able to take a look at the backstories of the characters and you'll find out why he doesn't like Bonnie all that much. So, which is very cool. But
Bonnie's a big bully.
Bonnie. But everybody
Bully
got
Bonnie. That's how she's
Bonnie.
known. Bully Bonnie.
Right. So everybody got to play those. And anyway, the story is that you start off on board the Calamity, and they're trying to the bad guys are trying to do something on board the Calamity, all secret.
Classic.
Sneaky sneak.
Sneaky sneak, so to speak. Yes. Is that right, Kaitlin? Sneaky sneak?
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I also believe that is what we should formally call that class
Yes,
within
sneaky.
the final version of
Yeah.
Knight's Edge.
Didn't both groups fill in the character sheet that way?
They did.
That just warms my heart.
So yes, they definitely put in there sneaky sneak because I just put in sneak and they've just put in sneaky sneak. Anyway, which was cool. But anyway, so one group managed to through surprise, it must be something about my games, I don't know. Through boarding actions, they managed to actually steal the bad guy's ship, but the other one didn't. They actually stuck to storyline, and I had to rewrite things on the fly for the first group. But all of them had a lot of fun. So what else did I play? I managed to play in Eric Strimple from the Geek Pantheon and Eberron Renewed podcast. He did a D&D 5th edition version of X-Men, which was done setting in Eberron. So for their aberrant marks was their powers, basically.
Okay.
So I managed to get Scott Summers, or the equivalent thereof. I managed to get to play Scott Summers and could not roll anything above a 7.
Yes.
Yay me. So I just took to the leadership role really quickly because I knew I didn't have to roll any dice. So anyway, so I did that. Got to play in Chris Witt's Familiar. Didn't play it with you guys, but got to play it with Sam and a few other people from the Gamer Nation community, which is really good. And I'm refusing to do this accent because I will... Yeah.
You gotta do it. Caitlin did a French accent. I've done my New Zealand accent.
Oh, wow.
This is correct. You have to do it.
Well, I played the Rat, and I played him with a New York accent, and it is, yeah, it was sort of like this. And I had to maintain that, and it was terrible. So
Hey, that's better than my French accent, to be fair.
So, yes. And
Well,
it cracked Sam up.
I did a crow for...
Oh, did you? You played the Crow? What did you play, Martin, in that game?
In the Familiars,
Yeah.
I played a fox.
You played a fox.
A fennec fox, one of my favorite creatures of all time.
And what did you play, Kaitlin? You played...
I played the snake.
Oh, right.
See, I play a sneaky sneak, but then I also play a sneaky snack.
Right.
There was a lot of our aerial deployment of that snake.
Oh,
too.
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So boarding actions.
Boarding
you could say.
actions. There you go. Very good. But I also got to play in Sam Stewart's game on the last day. We talk about cramming because I had no responsibilities to do on the Sunday, and Sam said, "Oh, do you want to play in my game?" And I've gone, well, "Where do I sign up?" And he ran an Age of Mythology game using Genesis.
Yep.
Where everybody was basically playing, like somebody was, I was playing Cassandra from Greek mythology. I hope I've got that right. And it was all centered around Troy. And we had to basically prevent the war with Troy had gone on for God only knows how long.
Yeah.
And so we had to go in and we've said, right, well, we've had enough of this war, so we need to go in and fix the war. So that was a lot of fun. I'm a little bit lost when it comes to Greek mythology. So I was, Norse mythology, no problem. Greek mythology, not a chance. For some reason. I don't know why. But anyway, we had a lot of fun with that. And I played a whole heap of board games. And just hung out and talked to people, which is one thing that can be said about this con. There is always someone who's up for a bit of a chat, and you can lose hours, doing that, which is a lot of fun.
I think most of my con time was spent socializing and chatting to people more than it was playing games. Like I played a lot of games, but I probably didn't play as many games as I could have played.
Yep.
But I was just talking to a lot of people, which was great.
Yeah,
Made solid Oz-Canadian connections, which is good.
Alliance.
So we're in time to take over the world. Look out, because we have finally united under the umbrella of our Royal Queen Majesty. So
right, yes.
Watch that rest of the world.
I mean, we made some inroads with the Norwegians as well, didn't we?
Well, I can't remember that.
I think so. We did. Don't worry, you were present.
I was that good.
In body.
Yeah,
Because not in anything else.
during that particular game, I had drunk the majority bottle of tequila that night. Wow.
I don't know why you would have drunk all that tequila.
I've hit my limit. I won't have any more. The next minute, Martin goes, "Here, have a shot." I'm like, okay, I can't say no to my own peer pressure. And then I had it. And the next minute, I turn the corner, and Kaitlin has a shot glass in her hand. Like, all right. I'm pretty sure that last shot was my cut off before I get dumb drunk.
Remember, people, drink responsibly.
Yeah,
Yes.
sure. To be fair, I've been messy drunk before, and I wasn't messy drunk. Thank
No.
Christ.
And
you
we
were-
looked
you
after
were
each
good.
other.
I didn't destroy anything, so it was all good.
Yep.
I didn't tear any banana trees out of the ground, which was my last tequila.
What now?
Yeah, I try. I don't remember it. Apparently, I destroyed a banana tree.
What? This wasn't at the con. This
No.
This is Christmas time.
right. Okay.
That's when Maggie bought me a bowl of tequila, and I was like, "Oh, tequila!" And
I see.
that poor banana tree was like,
Wow.
"Oh no!" and got thrown over a fence.
Okay. So I think
No, you're right, because you weren't messy drunk. I was sober and I was messy because I was holding a can of drink in my arm, right? And I dropped something and I went to go pick it up and I just see all of this liquid falling out of the can that's in my arm and I'm like, where is this coming from? Okay, all right. And I didn't even realize that I was pouring it all over the place. So I would have looked like I was incredibly intoxicated when I was just me.
Because, I mean, I can confirm you're the only player that I've had at the table that has managed to hurt yourself quite badly tripping on a flat-tiled surface. That's all I'm saying.
But it'll start you, Ian.
Yeah, it was starchy. That's where he ironed his clothes and where he sprayed the starch on his shirt. It was
Right.
a starchy area.
Sure it is.
But no, so you were right. So it was okay because at that night,
Yeah.
I would have been the drunk chick spilling drinks everywhere at the very beginning of the night. So you're all clear. No one knew that you were that drunk.
Honestly, I was just bummed that I missed the game because I just could not comprehend what
It was a
going
good
on.
game, too.
I know. I don't not remember it because I remember everything that happened. I was incapable of following it. I was like, I don't know what's going on.
You missed the part where we swam through the plumbing underneath the building and then popped up through the toilet and killed that guy.
See, that sounds like my sort of fun. And I'm sad that I wasn't there for that in spirit.
Or me, the bard, getting into a mecha and just becoming
Yes.
like the ultimate
I do
mech
actually remember that.
warrior.
And that's
that
what
took out everything.
Dude,
that was like...
I tuned in
Amazing.
because when I was starting to sober up, I tuned in towards more the end of that what was going on. And I'm like, why is there a mech killing things? I'm like, fair enough.
and
Yeah.
me inside of it.
Yeah, I'm like, well, I'm incredibly jealous. But
Yeah.
that's okay. I was there for morale support, I suppose.
You were. You were.
Now, the one thing that I didn't get to do, which I was really sort of a little bit upset about, but I'll move on from it, I'm sure, is that I did 5 superheroes as part of the con. There was myself, Keith Capel, Chris Hunt, as well as Darren West, who's also a friend of the podcast. And we all sort of got together about a week before. Thank you, Keith Capel. A week before the show. And Keith said, wouldn't it be a great idea if we did a combined Marvel superhero setting in the MCU where we each ran a game that was interconnected. And if you played all four of them, you would have a bigger story, but you could play it individually, which is great. Except Keith didn't run his game and I didn't manage to get to run mine. But we still did characters and whatever else. So at a later stage, we will do that. And we discussed this before the podcast, that we will do that as a live play. So
sometime.
Yeah. So expect to see the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man. Which will be there. And look, it'll be after Endgame, so we'll have a better idea.
Didn't Spider-Man fill in as a Fantastic Four member at one point?
He did.
Yeah.
When the Human Torch, I want to say, died.
Well,
anyway,
spoilers.
But anyway, so yeah, but yeah, so that's something to look forward to. But didn't manage to get to do that, which is a bit of a shame. But generally speaking, had an amazing time, as I always do over there. Catching up with friends and family, as Kaitlin said, that I only get to see once a year, but which is really, really good. And obviously catching up with you guys, which was and I know that you guys were busy and I was busy and we didn't get to spend as much time together, but what we did was amazing.
Absolutely.
And that's all that matters. So we've talked about our experiences and how much amazing things happened to us and what we did games-wise. But perhaps we should maybe give something else back to the community and tell exactly some tips and tricks for running stuff, because we've all run stuff, and Kaitlin, you've played in quite a number of games as well over the course of the convention. So perhaps we should, go around the table and, talk about what we would recommend for people who are attending a convention, either running games or just attending at a convention. Mike?
Well, as I said earlier, I didn't plan anything. I didn't even plan to play. I just thought I'd just show up and see what happens. And that's ultimately what I usually do with everything in life. Which is both good and bad, as it's ups and downs, because you never know what's going to happen. But when I got there, I felt inspired to run Android. Yep. And I had the last adventure that I had run for you guys at home. I thought, well, that's fresh in my mind. I don't really need to even consult my notes on that because it's all there in my head. So I just tweaked the start of that. But my tips, I guess, for like running a game at a con, especially when you're someone in a position where you're not prepared for anything. I know next year, or whenever I attend again, I will bring along a rudimentary GM kit. I will bring all my GM cards and stuff like that. Even make some characters. They could be generic characters. The beauty about Genesis is most characters can plug into most settings. You just got to change the gear they've got and their names maybe. But apart from that, you can really get by with anything because it's all shared attributes and shared skills. But I have a very rudimentary kit, so you can just slap out a game that you're unprepared for and off you go. If you've got a pre-written module that you know quite well, that's a good thing to run. If you've run a game at home for your friends using your own setting, which is what I did, or not setting own campaign rather, use that because 90% of the people at the table probably don't know your game. And even if they do, who cares? Run it again because it's a different experience. It's like playing a video game. It's going to be different every time you play it. So just do that. Don't be afraid to jump in and run a game. Just have a kit ready to go, I guess. I was lucky because there was a dollar store within stone's throw of the con. So I went across there and bought some stuff from there, which I actually didn't even end up using because fortunately GM Hooly had most of his stuff there, so I borrowed it. But, it's still handy to have a basic kit of things. Like I really miss not having my adversary cards in my folder, even though you supplied me with adversary cards. But because I didn't have them prior to running the game, I couldn't set up. I couldn't flip through my nice little folder that I've got and organise combats and stuff like that. Fortunately, I already sort of knew what you guys would be fighting, so it wasn't a big deal. But have your normal sort of kit there. If you're travelling a long distance, try and condense it, obviously, because you don't want to take up all your luggage and space like that. But you'd be surprised what you can fit into a fairly small amount of space in terms of that. So
definitely.
But yeah, it's my tips. Might not be that insightful, but I guess learning off the edge of your seat is what I did.
Martin, what sort of things would you recommend because I mean, you were thrown in the deep end, right? From you weren't expecting to run anything.
No.
All of a sudden it's just like, hey, we've got a rock star that really wants to play L5R.
No, I actually didn't get to play.
Moving on.
But no, I definitely echo, if you can, even if you're not intending to play anything, have some dice and things, initiative markers, things like that, just available. Because even if you don't get to run something, someone else might need them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the more games that are able to be played, the better.
Yeah.
For me, the big thing was making sure that I'd read through the module.
A working laptop. Don't forget
a working laptop. Yeah, very important. I mean, you don't need laptops, but for doing something at the seat of my pants, being able to jump on the website and look at because there's a lot of free modules that are available from FFG on their website, and these can come with characters.
Yep.
So if you've got nothing else, you can grab some characters from online and run with those. I just happened to run the module that they worked for. But the other thing that I thought that would be really good to do is run one of the beginner modules. If you duck down to the local gaming store, you could pick up the beginner game.
Yep.
For Star Wars.
There's 4 of them now.
There's a whole bunch.
Yeah.
And you can just crack that open. A lot of people may not have actually played that. I haven't actually played through any of those.
Oh, really?
No. So I mean, I've played through the adventure in the back of the actual core rulebook for Edge of the Empire, but I haven't touched any of the beginner games, and I own half of them.
Yeah.
They're a little bit different in their rules, so be aware of that. But it's a good story. It's good fun, and it'd be great to just sit down and do that.
Well, even if you haven't got the modules with you, if you've run it enough times, just run it again out of your head using your memory and fill the blanks. If there's specific things you can't remember, like the name of the NPC who gives a certain piece of information, who cares what his name is in the actual printed module?
That's it.
Just make something up on the fly and no one's going to know.
That is the other thing, is that because I'd only read through this module minutes before, I finished reading through it, there were some questions that the players posed to me that I didn't necessarily know the answer 100%. But as you say, just go with it. Give an answer and be confident with it, and try and remember what you've said. If you can't remember, write it down. Pen and paper. And then that way you can maintain that consistency through the game. It doesn't matter what the actual answer is supposed to be. Don't get hung up on that, because if you do, you're going to be flipping through the book, in front of the players for 20 minutes.
And you don't have time to do that at a con either.
No,
You've got really time constricted to get games done within a certain time frame, so you can't be sitting there going through book diving.
Exactly, because I ran to the very line. The last blow was delivered at the 11th hour of the game that I was supposed to run. So yeah, if I'd spent time diving through the book for everything,
what a tune-up time! Yeah,
I wouldn't have made it. And you want to be able to finish the story, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Kaitlin.
Plus, as well, if you do have a question, or if you don't know what an NPC's name is or anything like that, you can always throw it back to the players.
Yeah.
So I think even Mike did that in some of the Android setting. I mean, we took it to a whole new level where we made fun of how detailed we create our NPCs. But we do. It's you encounter someone, player 1. What's this NPC's name?
Yeah.
Just
what do they look like?
There's nothing wrong with engaging your players that way.
No, what do they look like? What describe that person to me.
And that could often be...
How close are they to retirement?
And at a convention too, you might catch some players off guard, because I think a lot of conventions you expect to be playing a lot of pre-written games.
Yeah.
So if you can throw stuff out like that at players, even though it's not, even in a pre-written game, you can do it. Just what does this NPC look like?
Yep.
His name might be Joe Bloggs on your piece of paper. He might deliver an important MacGuffin, but Joe Bloggs can be named or look whatever he likes with whatever personality.
Yep.
So don't be afraid to throw even the smallest little things to your players. Let them get creative with it, because it gives them a sense of, especially in Genesis, it gives them a sense of depth to the story.
To ownership, to
control.
involvement. Yeah.
Exactly. And at a con, I know in the past when I've played in pre-written adventures, I don't often enjoy them as much because I know they have a defined start and finish. But in the con game, if you can just spice it up along the way,
Yep.
I think it'd be very surprising the feedback they might get from your players.
Absolutely. So as a player, Kaitlin, what would you give some recommendations if somebody was going to a con and they were just wanting to play?
Well, I actually have. So part of it was actually inspired me that I really want to get back behind the screen again and actually prep some games to run next year.
Nice.
Because it just was so much fun. But as a player, and as someone who's very new to this type of thing, I had no idea what I was going to be walking into. I mean, I had a lot of people, like when I said I was nervous about going to this event, everyone would be like, wow, you've got friends, like people you know that are going to be there, but it's still a huge room full of people that you don't know, that you may have seen on Facebook before, but it still can be really nerve-wracking and can get your anxiety going, and it can be really intimidating to try and see if anyone actually does anyone want to play games with me or any of that kind of stuff. But what I actually found at this convention, and particularly with this group of people, was the exact opposite. We would be waiting in line or just kind of chilling out, having a chat, and someone would walk past and be like, hey, do you want to play in this game? And I just kind of had a thing of just saying to experience as much as I can, just saying yes to as many opportunities that came aboard. And so I managed to play with GM Phil, which I've never had the chance of actually playing in a game with before, which was amazing. And he was such a fantastic GM, the way that he engaged every single player around. Like you actually, as a person coming in, you kind of worry like, oh, am I going to have to take a back seat? Like, can I actually play how I would normally play? What are people going to think about my ideas? Because when you're playing with your friends every day, you kind of get into a really good system about how each other works and, you know, the ideas that you kind of can bounce off each other. But when you're playing with completely new people, a new GM, you kind of can get a little bit nervous about actually coming out of your shell a little bit. But GM Phil was really fantastic in bringing that out and actually supporting all of our ideas as role players. And that was a really good way of actually kicking off the con.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those things I would always recommend, like when an opportunity comes, like take it. If you see a game that you think you would actually really enjoy, jump in. People, like, unless there's seats are full, people are not going to say no to you joining a game. Even if you create your own game, like there was plenty of times when I want to play a board game. Who wants to play a board game? I think even Mike and I mean, we didn't write it down for any XP, but Mike and I, in between, while we're waiting for people to finish, we played a crazy cat lady game.
Too real.
Yeah. And
that was good though.
You know, it was good fun, but like it could have been anyone else that wanted to come in and join. Like it's I think going in with the expectations of knowing that you're going to meet new people and being open to that. It can be overwhelming. Like I would be exhausted every night, but exhausted in a good way because the type of people that I met, like I made so many friends that I didn't even know that I had already, which was just, it was wonderful. So my advice would be is to go with an open mind, to understand that it can be nerve-wracking and intimidating, but to not prevent you from actually experiencing all that con has to offer and experiencing the relationships that con can actually create with people around you. And some of the greatest times I had was jumping in games that I didn't even know was going to happen. Like Chris Witt, actually one of the people that actually helped Chase and I meet, and actually now that we're married, but Chris Witt introduced me to Ian and I managed to play in his Familiar game. So to actually have that full circle and to actually be playing with my now husband, who Chris kind of was part of the reason that we actually got married, even though, you know, Chase, I'm probably sure, is blaming Chris for a lot of things now. But, it's just, it was kind of weird about how much your life when you play these types of games revolve around the people that are around the table and they're all there. And it was definitely a surreal experience. So I would recommend making the trip for one. But don't let any type of your fears or things that very nearly got me get you. Actually go, attend. People, they change your mind and they make you feel welcome. As for the GM side of things, some of the notes that I took away, particularly from Chris's settings and also GM Phil's setting, well, actually all settings, really, all, like even the Sith Academy one, is that you do have time constraints. So and I know for me, when I'm creating my settings for next year, I know I am not going to be trying to create war and peace with the settings that I have. You effectively have, when we're talking about our beat sheets, you effectively have an introduction scene, a encounter, a second follow-up scene, and the final encounter.
Yep.
So when it comes to planning your sessions and when it comes to planning how you're actually going to be putting a thing together, think of it that way. Think of it as like 4 different parts: an introduction, a climax, a middle investigation stage, and a resolution.
Yeah.
You don't, as much as you say, as Ian, you jump around the table. You can plan as much as you want. As soon as you get players around there, it's going to completely change. Yeah. But I think in terms of trying to keep it simple and keep it interesting, you kind of want to keep that kind of flow in mind, because each of the games that I had definitely had that breakdown and structure. Yeah. And I think that held my ability to, engage with the character and know when where the story was supposed to go because of that structure, which was really good. But I would also recommend doing just little things that actually make the difference to the players around. Like I know GN Phil, he had miniatures, which by no means you have to have miniatures. I mean, you can just have nothing on the table and it can still be a great game, but little miniatures are really a nice touch. But one of the really cool things that I liked was when it came to the story points, when during his Fallout setting, he had bottle caps as the story points, which I thought was just a really nice way of bringing players in and engaging them. And I know for us, we had the character sheets that we printed out all in Knight's Edge, which I thought was really cool and a nice way of just kind of bringing everything together. So for me, my 2 biggest takeaways was to don't let social anxiety and stress and worry get in the way of enjoying the con, and also to keep your campaign simple but enjoyable. Keep it simple.
Well, I think to add to that as well, I think I was talking to JT about it. Most people at that con, or any con, they're all nerds, and most nerds are introverts.
Yeah, true.
So they tend to not... You sort of get this weird sort of like stalemate where you have people who are like looking for a game who are too shy or introverted to go out and seek a game. Then you have people who might be looking for players for a game who are then too shy or introverted to reach out for players for their game.
Yeah.
So I guess, because, as an introverted person myself, I find it hard to take that step. But as GM Kaitlin just said, don't be afraid to take that step, even though it feels like it's going against everything that you...
Every instinct.
Every instinct, that's right.
Absolutely.
But 99% of the time, everyone else that's there is going to be feeling exactly the same thing as you, and they're there to play games. That's if you just jump into a game, chances are they'll say yes. If they say no, well then they're not very nice people.
True.
And you walk away. But
it's true.
They're not going to say no. If they're there to play a game, they're there to play a game.
Absolutely. From my perspective, I'm a bit of an old hand when it comes to conventions. I've been going to conventions since, probably since the late 80s. So I've sort of a lot of local conventions more than anything else. Obviously, ran Gen Con as well, Gen Con Australia. And I was heavily involved with running BrizCon and the Big Weekend, which are 2 big conventions which kind of don't exist anymore from a role-play perspective anyway. And I've written probably about 4 or 5 different convention modules. And I can 100% support everything that Kaitlin said before about making it simple. You do have a time frame. There are some people who are crazy and run 12-hour sessions at conventions. All that I can say in that regard, it better be a bloody good game.
Well, there was, I don't know his name, so I do apologise if he's listening, but there was a guy at the first day of the con. He ran a game. It seemed to go for a long time, and everyone seemed to be enjoying it. And he was a very animated GM, so I wish I knew his name. But anyway, go on, sorry.
But yeah, so I think that when people go to conventions like this, they want to experience as much as they possibly can, and get bang for their buck. And I think as GMs, it's always good to play in games, not just run them. Get an opportunity to play in games that are run by people who have been doing this for a long time. because I think that it's important to know that as a GM, you get into a certain level of complacency of the way that you run games, and seeing how other people play and run their games is a really good opportunity to hone your own skills so that you can go, wow, I really like the way that Phil, for example, I really like the way that Phil positions himself at the table and the way that he definitely engages with each one of the players individually, and the way that he sort of treats the players was, okay, that's something that I can take a little bit more on board. It may not necessarily be true, but at least it's highlighting something that you can see that is important to you, that you think that your players might enjoy. So, use that as a bit of a research exercise if you want to do that as well.
It's a good way to learn technique.
Yeah, everyone. Absolutely. I agree 100% that, if you're looking at, if you're running a game, you're going to have to expect to get those moments where there are going to be awkward situations, and you need to prepare yourself for that. And I can, without sort of mentioning names or whatever else, I did happen to have one of those scenarios at my table. It was unfortunate, but two players just clashed. And this sort of thing does happen. And the only thing that you can do is try to diffuse that as best as you possibly can. So there was to use the example of what happened, there was a situation where somebody had to be healed because of some damage, and there was just this disconnect between the two players. And it's not important, honestly, what happened as a result, but what you could see at the table that there was going to be this clash was going to go on, and it was going to escalate. And the easiest way to go, and I know that I use this phrase consistently at the convention, you're not playing for sheep stations. And for those that don't understand what that means, it basically means, we're not playing for a high stakes game. We're playing to have fun. We're playing to enjoy ourselves at the table, doing what we love as a hobby. And so I think that it's important that if you get like that, diffuse it really quickly. Honestly, say, right, okay, well, there seems to be a disconnect here. How about we resolve it like this? And do it so that it's totally on the side of the players. And they'll probably just go, yeah, okay, no worries, thanks very much. And they moved on. And they did diffuse the situation.
That's all it takes.
So, yeah, but just be prepared that when you're talking about, role-playing within itself is one of those things where you're opening yourself up a little bit to people normally when you're around a table that you're talking to on a daily basis, whether it be online or whether you're playing with or whatever else. You are, by going to a convention, you're playing with people that you've never met before, and you're opening yourself emotionally to people that you don't know. And there are going to be times where those clashes do happen. So you just have to prepare yourself for that. And I think that the best idea is to err on the side of the players completely, and just go, you know what, let's run with this. And it can be something, like the equivalent of flipping a story point and go, no, this is actually how it is. And you just flip a story point towards the players so that they've got an extra one or something which is going to diffuse it, which they're going to go, oh, yeah, okay, cool. And maybe they might realize later on down the track to go, maybe I could have handled that situation differently. But at the moment, all that you need to do is just get past that point so that you can finish the module and have fun.
It keeps things flowing.
Exactly. So, yeah, one of the things that I was talking to Eric Strimple about, who we'll have on the podcast at a later stage when we really sort of go into this topic a little bit more, is that sort of reflecting a little bit on what GM Huzz has said, is that don't go in there with a massive number of notes. As Kaitlin said before, any sort of game is going to go off the rails. No matter what you do, you can't account for everything. Now, people like Phil and Chris are great at keeping everybody on track. Okay? I tend not to. I tend to let my players just do whatever they want, boarding actions included. But for the most part, when you're running these things, sure, write the adventure in the perfect scenario. Okay? But always do it with the thought in mind is that the first scene is going to happen the way that it happens or the way that it's introduced, but after that, it's free-for-all.
Yep.
So don't overcompensate when it comes to notes, because one thing that will do is that you'll become, again, complacent. You'll get used to exactly how that module is going on in your mind, and you won't be open to things going off the rails. Because in a con game, if things go off the rails and you're not prepared for that, you will lose players.
You'll feel constrained by your notes.
Absolutely.
I think the thing about a module, like I know in my head anyway,
Yep.
I feel, I'm writing a module, I have to have this written in such a way that I can publish it.
Yep. You don't.
You don't. Like, no one's ever going to see your notes unless you show them to you.
Yep.
Unless you show them to people.
Yep.
Just run it like you're running a session at home. Get a ballpark what you want to do.
Yep.
You have your basic beats, your interactions set up, your locations, etc. Then go for it. And run a few test plays with your group at home.
Yes.
And then once you have 2 or 3 games of that particular arc under your belt, you're going to remember it. You probably won't even have to look at your notes anymore.
No, that's
like
right.
I said earlier, that Android game, the only time I looked at my notes was, I think, was to get a name of one person.
Yeah.
And the rest of the time was me just getting NPC cards, and that was about it.
Yeah.
Same applies to any adventure you run. Like I was saying earlier, like the beginner box for Edge of the Empire. I'm confident I could run that now, just using its beats.
Yep.
Names will be changed, etc.
Yep.
But if you have a list of just randomly generated names next to you, then it's super easy.
Yep.
So with and you can do a very similar thing with your own module. You don't need to have it written down in this perfect printable, publishable form from start to finish. Because if you do that, you're going to, as you're saying before, Ian, if you do that, you're just going to be constricting yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're going to go, damn, I really wish I was a little bit more loose with these plans, because now it's all going pear-shaped. And if you're not an experienced GM, or you haven't got many years under your belt, you could find yourself in a situation where your players aren't enjoying the game anymore, because you're then having to force a railroad.
Yeah.
And you don't want to do that. If you're forcing a railroad, then a nice shiny set of rails, which often stand out if they're really bad, then players might react poorly to that, and the game quickly goes
That's right.
downhill.
Absolutely. So yeah, sort of another, just a minor tip that I'd suggest, because it causes me a headache every time, is that if you are going to write your own module, Kaitlin said it before, use the beat chart that we've provided. It's available online, or something similar. Make sure that you don't go too overboard with the number of beats, because you're probably only going to get to include 1 beat per 3/4 of an hour. Add in an additional bit of time there for people who've never played the game system before. So, enable that little bit of time to just take them through the dice system. And it really only takes 15 minutes, and just say, you'll pick it up along the way. And they normally do.
Well, another tip there, if you know there's people with the game who aren't overly experienced with a particular game you're playing, and there is people that are experienced, seat them next to the experienced players and say,
Absolutely.
hey, you, Mr. Experienced Player, can you hold this guy's hand while they get used to the system?
Yeah. And normally most of the time that they will do that anyway.
Absolutely.
Like,
but sorry.
Yeah. So if they've never played, if somebody who's played it before and somebody says, "Oh, I've never played this game," always ask that at the start of the session. Has everybody played this game before?
Yep.
Or is everybody familiar with this setting?
Yep.
Because I know for Night's Edge, a couple of the players didn't. So I had to sit down and basically go, right, here's a quick 5-minute recap on exactly what happened in Night's Edge.
Yep.
And they've gone, oh, cool.
It was the same sort of thing for Legend of the Five Rings. Most of the players at the table didn't know the setting.
Yep.
And so being able to give that recap, or the game system either.
Yep.
And
L5R is a tough one to get into, so you did well to run that for a bunch of new players.
Well, the way, and this is another tip, is that the way that I did it is I explained the dice mechanic at the start. That's as far as I went into how the rules work.
Right.
And then the first fight I kept simple,
Yep.
and used that as the learning mechanism
Yep.
for how dice rolling and all of that works.
Yep.
And they didn't really use much in the way of techniques or the high level stuff for that fight. But then by the time the second the next fight rolled around, they knew what they were doing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They're ready for it.
Yeah. Combat is probably the best way that you can teach people the system.
Yep.
Because it uses all of the mechanics that are used in the game for the most part. So if you're going to write a game, start with a combat or start with a skill challenge or something like that is going to enable them to have experience with the rules.
Give everyone a chance to roll some dice.
Absolutely. So as far as the some of the things to take with you, always take an initiative tracker when running Genesis. Those are available. You can buy a couple online, or you can just make sure you take tokens. I know that Drain Smith, who's another fan of the podcast, Scott Zamwalt, he has done a 3D version of the chips as well. That most people have, or a lot of people have got 3D printers, or know someone who does, and maybe do that as well. So, there's all sorts of things that you can do. As I said, we'll go into more about that at a later stage on another episode. We will really nut into things that you can do to make your convention episodes better. So that's a general overview, I think, guys, of what to expect of Gamination Con or any sort of convention, really. Yep. If you're talking about Gen Con, like the Mecca, you're talking about that's a different story altogether. Maybe if Kaitlin, if you manage to get out to Gen Con this year, if there is a chance that maybe you
I'll
might
see
have
if
to.
my van will get me there.
Yeah, I'm a fan of that van. But to be fair, I've never been to an American Gen Con, so I'm only talking about what I've heard from other people's interactions with it. Yep. It's very commercialized. And to be honest, I think if someone offered me tickets to Gen Con or Gamination Con, I would take Gamination Con again and tear up the Gen Con tickets.
I wouldn't tear them up.
No, I would tear them up. I'll be like, this is how much I prefer the Gamination Con and tear up the Gen Con.
Yeah.
Look, it's a matter of principle, man. Principle.
A lot can be said about small community cons, because they do have that very family feel. And that's exactly what Gamination Con is.
Well, you get up at Gen Con. I'm only piecing this together from other bigger gaming conventions I've been to.
Yeah.
You get up from the table after your game at that massive commercialized con with 1 million people.
Yep.
As soon as you leave that table, you disappear into the sea of people, and you'll never likely interact with any of those people.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know at Gamination Con, I was at the table with multiple people several times from different games. Yeah. I know at Gamination Con, at Gen Con, that would probably never happen.
I can 100% confirm that you are 100% right.
Excellent.
Yep.
Or you're across the road having lunch and a couple of dozen beers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely. So it feels like a community rather than you're just another number.
Yeah, not sheep in the pen.
Gamination Con, as far as I'm concerned, it's the best smallest international convention on the planet. So if you've never been to Gamination Con ever, I would highly recommend doing that. And I think we all are in agreement now that we've all attended how much fun and how much of a family-based atmosphere it is. So
and I think Krista said it perfectly, who was one of the runners with Chris as well, her husband. Like it is a family. Like I've only been to one, and I already miss every single person that I encountered at that session.
Absolutely.
Like it was like being welcomed into a family, which I wasn't expecting, and it just warmed my heart.
And you also, just as a side note completely, you also get to hobnob with people like Sam Stewart, RPG manager of Fantasy Flight Games, and Sterling Hershey, one of the freelancers, Keith Gappel, another freelancer. Me, no, seriously.
But no, seriously.
But there are all sorts of things that you can get to do. All of the podcast hosts are there. You can actually have a game run by a podcast host right in front of you.
Yeah. You know, it's funny
What?
that I got sort of bag mouthed because I didn't know who this Fallout Boy dude was. And I'm like, oh, who's he? And they're like, oh, I'm like, okay, fair enough. But that speaks volumes to this sort of community. Like a guy of that, now I know, fairly that high status in being a celebrity, can just come to a little convention like that and not be harassed by anyone like he would be anywhere else.
Yeah.
He was just another person in the crowd, and unless it wasn't pointed out to me, I would have never known.
Exactly. Well, same.
I was trying hard not to fangirl. Like I was just like, you're just another person. He was super shy and super sweet, but I'm like, I was at your concert many years ago. Like it was pretty cool to kind of actually see him there, but also just to meet him, and he's just a super. Like I thought the world of him. I thought he was really cool.
Well, the most surreal experience I had was when I was in the tea room going to drink a water or something like that, and he was in there like heating up his lunch in the microwave. It was like, and I was like, oh, whatever. I just had a normal conversation with him because I have no reason to be. Oh my god, 'cause I don't know who he is.
Yeah,
whatever. But like, it was a surreal situation to be in, that someone of that status could be just in there hitting up their lunch with no one harassing them.
Which it takes it away from their not like. I had this experience when I went for the first year.
Yeah.
With Phil, Chris, and Dave.
Yeah.
I mean, I listened to all of their episodes because I really was interested in the narrative dice system. And I learnt the narrative dice system from them. And they're these disembodied fountain of knowledge that you just listen to. And then to meet them in person, it's weird because you have this sort of, you put them up on a pedestal, and to know that they're just real normal people with real jobs and, with that they're just genuinely decent individuals, it just makes you, again, more part of that community. So, thoroughly enjoy it. But yes. For next year's convention, if you're able to get out there is they have a theme, which being the fact that it's a number 7, they have decided that it's 007 license to game. So everything spies and whatever else. And I've already got my 2 games worked out. I'm going to run a Mission Impossible Genesis, and then I'm going to do Section 31 for Star Trek, which will be amazing. I
also think we need to organize a night where you guys get some tuxedos.
Yes.
And I'm going to be the super villain with the eye patch, and I'm going to figure out some black, my husband's just died gown, so I can be a super villain, and you guys are all in the James Bond tuxedos. This is going to happen.
I was thinking about creating my own new fictional villain as well.
Oh.
To go as.
Yes, well, I'll certainly take you off.
Why don't we play as the villains in a spy game instead of the heroes?
Trying to plot, and the NPCs are all the heroes trying to foil our plans. I like this.
One of the suggestions that somebody came up with, there is a game which is called, I think it's Og or Ugg, and you're basically playing cavemen, and you just die all the time because you're trying to survive. Somebody suggested a spy version of that where the big bad that you're fighting is actually James Bond.
Yep.
And everybody else, instead of playing Ugg, you're basically playing the minions. So, so I think that'll be a lot of fun too.
That'd be kind of cool.
That's interesting.
But
yeah, we need to work out our cosplay for next year. I reckon we need to get on that. That we saw so many people dressed up, and I really want to do a Dice Ball podcast one next year.
That sounds good.
Another game that I wouldn't mind running would be L5R again.
Oh,
playing as ninjas and shinobi.
There's no such thing.
Of course not.
There's no such thing as shinobi.
You guys can play ninjas and shinobis. You can play your James Bond or Mission Impossible.
Right.
I'll just run an ISB campaign.
Ooh.
Save me a seat.
You have to kill someone to be in that seat, man.
Wow.
Who?
I don't care who.
It's a part of the prerequisite.
That's cool. Very, very cool. Very good. Excellent. Well, yes. So, that as
That's good as 007's thing is. I'm really looking forward to the next one.
Which is?
I'm not at liberty to say.
Oh.
Because Chris may have dropped a hint, and I got very, very excited.
Ah.
It was right up my alley. I was like,
Really?
interesting.
Wow.
Ah.
Title of your next sex tape.
Good lord.
Ooh.
PG rating.
Right.
You can
If you
cut
want a
that.
link to that, PM me.
Right. Absolutely. All right. So that was a good chat, I think, talking about Gamer Nation Con. And, sorry if it was more of a reminiscent episode for us. But hopefully we've given you some tips and tricks
Also be
along
there.
the way. And also be there.
Yeah.
If you haven't, go
'Cause
there now.
I have to be there next year. I had so much fun. Like it's not an option. I'm going. So this will be a good
Absolutely.
opportunity. If you're listening to it now, start saving.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know, right? I know.
Yes. Both of you, all of you guys need to start saving.
Yes. We do.
And you'll need to organise a time as well where you guys all come up beforehand as well and actually come and stay. I don't know where we'll be.
Yep.
Don't know if it's going to be San Diego, but we don't know where it'll be. But, maybe we'll figure something out. We need to get the dice pool back together.
Yes.
I agree. All right, so that brings us to the end of another show. If you have any questions about the game, GMing, or just gaming in general, you can send us an email to info@thedicepoolpodcast.com, or you can post your questions to Facebook and Twitter. There are plenty of great community members who will offer you some great advice, and you may be lucky enough to get your question answered here on the show. And that includes any show topics that you'd like us to talk about. Plus, you can also visit us on the web at thedicepoolpodcast.com.
Also, make sure to like and follow the Dicepool Podcast on Facebook and Twitter by searching at Dicepool Podcast. We also have our community group that is really filled with a lot of wonderful people and all your activities and work, which is amazing to see.
And you can also track us down on YouTube by just simply searching at the Dice Pool Podcast or just typing in our name. I'm sure you'll find us either way. We're also available on the D20 Network's Discord channel.
That is true.
So feel free to drop us a line there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And people will notice as well that we have recently moved our servers over to Podbean. So which makes it a lot easier for us to get information up there, and you can take a look at the full list of all of the podcasts that have come before this one. You can search for us, the Dicepool Podcast, on Podbean. And as you may have also seen as well with YouTube, we've been getting all of our back catalogue of episodes up there. So if that's how you consume your podcasts, that's the way to go. And more recently, and this is the most exciting thing out of the whole process, is you can now find us on Spotify. So which is really cool. So, and don't forget to drop us a review if you are enjoying what you're listening to on iTunes or Facebook. Or you can even do it on individual episodes. Tell us what you want to know about on individual episodes on YouTube as well. So, all very exciting.
Absolutely.
Many, many ways that you can get to us. So that's a wrap, guys. Thanks very much. And hopefully you've all learned something. And look forward to seeing you all on the next episode of the Dicepool Podcast. I'm GM Hooly.
I am GM Huzz.
I'm GM Flano.
I'm GM Kaitlin.
And together we are the Dicepool Podcast, where adventure is just a triumph away. The Dicepool Podcast is a proud member of the D20 Radio Network. For more information about the network, visit www.d20radio.com. The Dicepool Podcast is a fan-generated podcast. All of the information provided on the podcast and related website are not affiliated with Fantasy Flight Games or any of their licensors. The content of this podcast remains a property of the Dicepool Podcast and is intended for educational and informational purposes only. The Genesis role-playing game, Genesis logo, content, and all material remain the property of Fantasy Flight Games.